The ceremonial chamber of the Valkyrian War Council rang with ancient harmonics as Captain Maya Chen stood before the assembled warriors, feeling like a defendant in a trial where the verdict had already been decided. The Valkyrians were magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, tall, ethereal beings with silver hair that seemed to catch light from sources that didn't exist, and eyes that shifted from pale blue to storm gray depending on their emotions. At the center of the crescent-shaped assembly stood War Maiden Lyralii, her eyes blazing with a fury that made the air around her seem to crackle with electricity. She wore the traditional war paint of her clan, intricate patterns of silver and blue that traced the elegant lines of her face and disappeared beneath her ceremonial armor. In her hands, she held a blade that hummed with molecular vibration, a weapon that could cut through steel as easily as silk. Human Captain Maya Chen, Lyralii's voice carried across the chamber like the sound of wind through crystal formations. You stand accused of causing the death of my sister, War Maiden Thessera, through negligence and dishonor. Maya kept her expression neutral despite the weight of accusation and grief that filled the room. War Maiden Lyralii, I've come here to explain the circumstances of that tragic incident. Your sister's death was not intentional. Silence. Lyralii's eyes flashed from gray to deep amber, and every Valkyrian in the chamber tensed as if preparing for violence. You speak of accidents and circumstances, but my sister is dead because your patrol acted without honor, without wisdom, without the respect due to a peacebearer. The incident had happened 6 days ago, during what should have been a routine border patrol. Thessera had approached Maya's unit alone, carrying the traditional white banner that marked her as a diplomatic envoy. But the young human private on censored duty had misidentified her approach as an attack pattern, and his panicked warning had triggered an automated defense response that killed Thessera before anyone could countermand the order. Thessera came in peace, Maya said carefully, carrying messages between our peoples. Her death is a tragedy that I will carry with me always. But it was not murder, and it was not dishonor. Was it not? Lyralii stepped forward, her blade singing a low, dangerous note. My sister approached with all proper protocols, announced her peaceful intentions in your own language, and was killed by weapons that fired without warrior's honor, without looking her in the eyes, without giving her a chance to fight or flee. Maya felt the truth of that accusation like a physical blow. The automated systems had responded faster than human judgment, exactly as they were designed to do. In human military doctrine, that was considered a successful engagement. In Valkyrian culture, it was the deepest form of dishonor, death without the chance for combat, death without recognition of one's worth as a warrior. I accept responsibility for my unit's actions, Maya said formally. If there is compensation that can be made. Compensation. Lyralii's laugh was sharp as her blade. Human, you understand nothing of loss, nothing of honor, nothing of the bonds that tie sister to sister in the warrior's path. The War Maiden raised her humming blade above her head, and the assembled Valkyrians began to chant in their ancient tongue, words that seemed to resonate in the bones and make the very air vibrate with power. I, Lyralii of the Stormwind clan, daughter of War Mother Velthania, sister to the fallen Thessera, do swear before the Council of Blades and the eyes of my ancestors the oath of Kethmoran Vash, the blood hunt that knows no ending. Maya felt her stomach drop as the translation protocols in her ear rendered the archaic Valkyrian into terms she could understand. A blood oath, the most serious form of challenge in Valkyrian culture, a vow that could only be satisfied by the death of the target or the oath-swearer. I swear by the silver paths of my bloodline and the strength of my blade arm that I will hunt Captain Maya Chen across the spaces between stars, that I will face her in single combat, and that I will not rest until her death has balanced the scales of honor that her actions have broken. The chamber erupted in harmonious voices as every Valkyrian present bore witness to the oath, their words weaving together into something that felt like fate itself being spoken into existence. Maya realized with growing horror that she had just become the target of a ritualized hunt that would not end until one of them was dead. War Maiden Lyralii, Maya tried desperately, there has to be another way. Your sister wanted peace between our peoples. Would she want her death to destroy everything she worked for? Lyralii's eyes flashed through a spectrum of colors, grief, rage, and something that might have been uncertainty before settling back into implacable determination. My sister's dreams died with her, Captain. Only blood can restore what blood has taken. As the ceremony concluded and the Valkyrans began to file out of the chamber, Maya found herself alone with Lyralii. The War Maiden stood perfectly still, her blade still humming with deadly energy, her eyes fixed on Maya with the intensity of a predator memorizing its prey. "How long do I have?" Maya asked quietly. "By tradition, 3 days to prepare yourself, to make peace with your gods, to arrange your affairs." Lyralii's voice was cold as space between stars. "Then the hunt begins, and it will not end until honor is satisfied. And if I refuse to fight? If I try to leave the system?" Lyralii's smile was beautiful and terrible. "Then I will follow you to the edge of known space and beyond. The Kethmoran Vash is not bound by borders, Captain. It is bound only by death." As Maya left the chamber, she could feel Lyralii's eyes tracking her every movement, and she realized that she had 3 days to find a solution to an impossible problem: how to satisfy an unbreakable oath without destroying the peace that Thessera had died trying to create. The hunt began at dawn on the 4th day, marked by the ancient Valkyrian horn call that echoed across the crystalline forests of Theros. 9. Maya had used her 3 days of preparation to study every piece of available data on Valkyrian combat techniques, cultural protocols, and the specific traditions surrounding blood oaths. What she'd learned had not been encouraging. The Kethmoran Vash was more than a simple challenge to combat, it was a sacred ritual that dated back thousands of years to the founding of Valkyrian civilization. According to the ancient texts, the blood hunt served as both justice and spiritual cleansing, allowing the grieved party to restore honor through direct action while giving the accused a chance to prove their worth through skill and courage. The problem, Maya muttered to herself as she checked her equipment one final time, is that the system assumes both parties share the same cultural values about honor and death. She'd positioned herself in the Singing Cliffs, a region of floating stone islands held aloft by Theros 9's unique magnetic field patterns. The terrain offered both advantages and challenges, multiple escape routes if needed, but also countless opportunities for ambush by someone who knew the area better than she did. Lyralii found her within hours, appearing on a neighboring floating island with the fluid grace of a natural predator. The War Maiden had traded her ceremonial armor for practical hunting gear, but she still carried that humming molecular blade and her eyes still blazed with unwavering purpose. "Captain Chen," Lyralii called across the gap between islands, her voice carrying easily in the thin air. "I offer you the traditional choice: face me in honorable combat, or flee and be hunted as prey across the stars." "I choose a third option," Maya replied, activating her combat suit's voice amplification. "I choose to talk. Thessera died because of a misunderstanding. Doesn't honor demand that we understand what actually happened before we add more deaths to the tragedy?" Lyralii's response was to leap across the 20-meter gap between islands, her enhanced physiology and the planet's reduced gravity making the jump look effortless. Maya barely had time to draw her plasma sidearm before the Valkyrian warrior was upon her, moving with speed that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The first exchange lasted less than 30 seconds and ended with Maya's weapon sent spinning into the void and Lyralii's blade at her throat. But instead of delivering the killing blow, the War Maiden paused, her eyes studying Maya's face with unexpected intensity. "You did not flinch," Lyralii observed. "When death came for you, you met it with steady eyes. There is honor in that, even from one who serves a dishonored cause." "Thessera had that same courage," Maya said carefully, not daring to move with the molecular blade so close to her neck. "When she approached our patrol, she knew the risks, but she came anyway because she believed peace was worth dying for." Something flickered in Lyralii's eyes, a shadow of pain that spoke of grief still raw and unhealed. "Do not speak her name to me, human. You have not earned that right." "Then what must I do to earn it?" Maya asked. "What would convince you that I mourn her death as much as you do?" Lyralii pulled back her blade, but her stance remained ready for combat. "Words are wind, Captain. Only actions carry weight in the scales of honor. Over the following days, their deadly game of cat and mouse played out across the diverse landscapes of Theros. 9. Lyralii would track Maya to some seemingly secure position, they would engage in brief but intense combat, and then one or both would withdraw to regroup and plan the next encounter. But something unexpected began to happen during these exchanges. Maya started to understand the subtle complexities of Valkyrian combat philosophy, how their fighting style was as much about demonstrating respect for one's opponent as it was about achieving victory. And Lyralii began to see that Maya's tactics showed a deep respect for the War Maiden's abilities, never treating her as a simple enemy to be destroyed but as a worthy adversary to be engaged with full attention and skill. During their fourth encounter, in a grove of singing crystal trees, Lyralii paused mid-strike as Maya executed a defensive maneuver that could only have come from intensive study of Valkyrian combat forms. "You have been learning our ways," Lyralii said, her blade held in a neutral position that signified temporary suspension of hostilities. "Your sister's research notes were included in the diplomatic files," Maya replied, not lowering her guard but not advancing either. She wrote extensively about the philosophy behind Valkyrian combat techniques. Her insights were remarkable. Thessera believed that understanding an opponent's mind was more important than matching their strength, Lyralii said softly. She thought that true warriors fought to understand, not simply to destroy. Is that why she approached our patrol alone? She was trying to understand us. Lyralii's eyes shifted from amber to a deep blue that Maya was beginning to recognize as the color of profound sadness. She believed that courage and vulnerability were two faces of the same truth. That showing trust to an enemy was the first step toward making them a friend. She was right, Maya said. But her courage cost her everything. Yes. Lyralii's voice was barely above a whisper. And now her death demands a price that may cost us everything else. For the first time since the blood oath had been sworn, Maya saw uncertainty in the War Maiden's expression, a crack in the absolute certainty that had driven her across the hunting grounds of Theros. 9. Lyralii, Maya said carefully, what if there was another way to honor Thessara's memory? What if the Kethmoran Vash could be satisfied without destroying the peace she died trying to create? Lyralii's blade began to hum more loudly, but her eyes remained troubled. The oath is sacred, Captain. It cannot be broken or bargained away. I'm not asking you to break it, Maya replied. I'm asking if there might be ways to fulfill it that we haven't considered yet. The question hung in the air between them like a bridge neither quite dared to cross, while the crystal trees sang their eternal songs of wind and time. The seismic event struck Theros, 9 without warning, a massive tectonic shift that sent shockwaves through the planet's crystalline core and caused the floating islands to dance like leaves in a hurricane. Maya and Lyralii had been engaged in their most intense duel yet, their weapons locked in a deadly embrace high above the whispering canyons, when the ground beneath them literally shattered. Hold on! Maya shouted as their floating platform began to disintegrate, chunks of magnetized stone spinning away into the void. She fired her grappling hook toward what looked like a stable outcropping, but the cable went slack as the entire formation collapsed. Lyralii didn't waste time with words. She sheathed her blade and dove toward Maya, catching the human captain just as the platform gave way completely. Using her enhanced physiology, she managed to guide their fall toward what appeared to be a cave opening in the canyon wall. Though cave was perhaps the wrong word for the clearly artificial tunnel that yawned before them. They crashed through ancient barriers and tumbled down smooth corridors that hummed with residual energy, finally coming to rest in a chamber that took Maya's breath away. The walls were covered in flowing Valkyrian script that seemed to move and shift in the light, and holographic displays flickered to life as their presence activated long-dormant systems. By the silver paths, Lyralii whispered, rising to her feet with obvious reverence. This is a temple of remembrance. I thought they were all myths. Maya activated her translation protocols and began scanning the nearest wall inscriptions. The text was ancient Valkyrian, far older than anything in the diplomatic databases, but the universal translator was slowly parsing meaning from the flowing symbols. It's some kind of historical archive, Maya said, watching as holographic figures began to materialize around them. Ghostly Valkyrans acting out scenes from their distant past. Look at this section here. It's about the origin of the Kethmoran Vash. The holographic display showed ancient Valkyrian society in chaos, warrior clans locked in endless cycles of revenge and blood feuds that threatened to destroy their entire civilization. Clan fought clan in devastating conflicts that lasted generations, each death demanding further vengeance in a spiral that seemed to have no end. The time of endless blades, Lyralii read, her voice hushed with awe. When the warrior's path became a road to extinction. The display shifted to show a gathering of wise leaders from all the clans, meeting in chambers not unlike the war council where Lyralii had sworn her oath. But these ancient warriors were different, their eyes held wisdom born of terrible cost, and their words carried the weight of species survival. They created the Kethmoran Vash to end the blood feuds, Maya realized, watching the holographic ceremony unfold. Not to perpetuate them, but to channel the need for vengeance into something that could actually resolve conflicts. The original blood oath was revealed to be far more complex than its modern interpretation. Ancient Valkyrans understood that the need for justice was as fundamental as breathing, but they also understood that endless revenge would eventually leave no one alive to seek it. So they created a system where blood debts could be satisfied through trials that tested not just strength, but wisdom, courage, and the ability to find solutions that served the greater good. The Chamber of Reconciliation, Lyralii read from inscriptions that described ritual spaces where blood oaths could be resolved through understanding rather than death. Where warriors proved their honor not by taking life, but by preserving it. Another seismic tremor shook the ancient temple, and Maya realized they were trapped. The entrance they'd fallen through had been sealed by the continuing tectonic activity, and their communications equipment couldn't penetrate the temple's shielding to call for rescue. We're going to have to work together to find another way out, Maya said, studying the temple's layout on a holographic map that had materialized near the central altar. Work together. Lyralii's hand moved instinctively to her blade. Captain, the Kethmoran Vash still binds me. I cannot simply abandon my oath because we are trapped together. I'm not asking you to abandon it, Maya replied, activating more of the temple's historical displays. I'm asking you to help me understand what it originally meant. Look at these records, Lyralii. The blood oath was never supposed to be about simple revenge. It was supposed to be about finding a path to honor that served life rather than death. As they explored deeper into the temple complex, working together to navigate ancient security systems and environmental puzzles, their relationship began to shift in subtle ways. Maya found herself relying on Lyralii's intuitive understanding of Valkyrian cultural symbols, while Lyralii began to appreciate Maya's analytical approach to solving complex problems. Your sister would have loved this place, Maya said as they decoded another historical archive together. Listen to this passage about diplomatic warriors, Valkyrans who sought to understand their enemies so completely that they could find common ground even in the deepest conflicts. Lyralii's eyes shifted to that deep blue of profound sadness. Thessera studied the ancient ways. She believed that the modern interpretation of our traditions had lost something essential, something that made us stronger rather than simply more dangerous. What did she think we'd lost? The understanding that true strength comes from connection, not domination. That a warrior's greatest victory is not in destroying enemies, but in transforming them into allies. Lyralii paused before a particularly ornate display showing ancient reconciliation ceremonies. She would say that the Kethmoran Vash should make us both stronger, not leave one of us dead. They reached the Chamber of Reconciliation just as another massive tremor threatened to bring down the entire temple complex. The chamber was a perfect circle lined with mirrors that reflected not just their physical forms, but seemed to show deeper truths about their intentions and motivations. The final test, Maya read from the inscriptions. Two warriors enter in conflict, but they can only leave when they have found a path that honors both their positions while serving the greater good. Lyralii stared at her reflection in the ancient mirrors, seeing herself as she truly was. Not just a grieving sister seeking revenge, but a warrior whose people were watching to see whether the old ways could adapt to new challenges. "Captain Maya Chen," she said formally, "I believe the time has come to discover what the ancestors truly intended when they created the Blood Oath. Will you join me in the trial of understanding?" Maya nodded, stepping into the circle beside her. "War Maiden Lyralii, I accept. Let's find out what honor really means." The rescue teams from both species converged on the collapsed temple site simultaneously, their ships hovering above the ruins like mechanical vultures waiting to see which warrior would emerge victorious. Human military commanders stood alongside Valkyrian war mothers, their faces grim with the expectation of finding one corpse and one killer among the ancient stones. "Seismic activity has stabilized," reported Commander Torres from the human rescue vessel. "We're detecting 2 life signs in the lower chambers, but the readings are unusual." War Mother Velthania, Lyralii's own mother, studied the scanner data with growing confusion. "They are together, not in combat. Both signatures show elevated neural activity consistent with deep meditation or ritual trance. What they couldn't detect from orbit was the transformation occurring within the Chamber of Reconciliation." Maya and Lyralii had spent the past 18 hours engaged in the ancient trial of understanding, a process that required them to experience each other's memories, motivations, and deepest fears through the temple's neural interface technology. Maya had felt Lyralii's grief as if it were her own, the terrible weight of losing not just a sister, but the one person who had understood her dreams of peace between their peoples. She experienced the crushing burden of Valkyrian honor codes that demanded satisfaction for blood debts, even when that satisfaction might destroy everything the dead had worked to achieve. Lyralii, in turn, had walked through Maya's memories of the patrol incident, feeling the human captain's horror as the automated systems fired before anyone could stop them. She experienced Maya's desperate attempts to save Thessera, the weight of command responsibility that meant accepting blame for subordinates' actions, and the profound respect Maya had developed for Thessera's diplomatic work. "I understand now," Lyralii said as the neural interface powered down, leaving them standing face to face in the circle of ancient mirrors. "The Keth Moran Vash was never meant to be simple revenge. It was meant to be transformation, changing enemies into something stronger." "Your sister's death was a tragedy," Maya replied, her voice heavy with shared grief. "But her vision doesn't have to die with her. The blood oath can be satisfied, Lyralii, but not through death. Through life. Through choosing to build what she dreamed of." The temple's systems activated one final display, showing them the ancient ceremony of Velthara Miran, the warrior's bond that transformed enemies into sworn allies. The holographic figures demonstrated the ritual, 2 warriors offering each other their hands in a gesture that symbolized the choice to protect rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down. "Sister warrior," Lyralii said softly, using the ancient term that had not been spoken in living memory. "The trial has shown me truth. You mourn Thessera as I do. You seek to honor her memory as I do. You carry the burden of her death as I do. Then let us carry it together," Maya replied. "Let us transform this tragedy into something that serves life rather than death." The sound of drilling echoed through the chamber as the rescue teams finally breached the temple's outer barriers. Voices called out in both human standard and Valkyrian, demanding to know the status of the combatants within. But Maya and Lyralii stood calmly in the center of the Chamber of Reconciliation, their hands clasped in the ancient gesture of alliance. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" Lyralii asked. "When we emerge together, both our peoples will demand to know why the blood oath has not been satisfied with death. Then we'll show them that it has been satisfied," Maya replied. "Just not in the way they expected." The rescue teams broke through the final barriers just as Maya and Lyralii stepped out of the chamber together, their movements synchronized like dancers who had practiced the same routine for years. The sight of them, enemy and hunter, human and Valkyrian, standing side by side with clasped hands, sent shockwaves through both rescue parties. Lyralii. War Mother Velthania rushed forward, her eyes blazing with confusion and concern. "Daughter, what has happened here? Where is the human's body? Why do you stand with the oath-bound in friendship? Lyralii raised her free hand, and every Valkyrian present fell silent. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of ancient tradition and the weight of personal transformation. War Mother, honored warriors, witness what I declare before you all. The Kethmoran Vash has been satisfied, but not as we expected. The trial of understanding has revealed truth that demands new action. She turned to face the assembled crowd, still holding Maya's hand in the ritual gesture of Velthara Miran. Captain Maya Chen did not kill my sister through dishonor or malice, but through the tragic failings of systems that act without wisdom. She has proven her worth in combat, her courage in the face of death, and her honor through shared grief. By the ancient laws that our ancestors intended, I declare the blood debt satisfied through understanding rather than destruction. Commander Torres stepped forward, his expression caught between relief and diplomatic panic. Captain Chen, what exactly has happened here? Are you claiming that this trial has resolved the conflict between our peoples? Maya looked at Lyralii, seeing her own determination reflected in the Valkyrian's eyes. Commander, War Maiden Lyralii and I have undergone the ancient trial of understanding. We've experienced each other's memories, shared each other's grief, and found a path to honor that serves both our peoples. I offer Captain Maya Chen the Velthara Miran, Lyralii announced, her voice carrying across the ruins like a battle cry. The warrior's bond that makes us sister-sworn, oath-bound to protect each other and the peace that our shared sister died trying to create. The gesture sent ripples of shock through both groups. The Velthara Miran had not been offered to an outsider in over 1,000 years, and never to someone who had been the target of a blood oath. This is unprecedented, War Mother Velthania said, though her tone held wonder rather than disapproval. To transform a death hunt into a life bond. The ancestors would approve, Lyralii replied confidently. They created these rituals to strengthen our people, not to diminish them. Captain Chen has proven herself worthy of the highest honor we can offer. Maya felt the weight of history and hope settling on her shoulders as she formally accepted Lyralii's offered hand. War Maiden Lyralii, I accept the Velthara Miran and all the responsibilities it carries. I swear to honor your sister's memory by building the peace she envisioned. The ceremony that followed was witnessed by both species and broadcast across known space, the unprecedented moment when a blood oath was transformed into a bond of alliance, when enemies chose to become sisters, when the ancient ways proved flexible enough to serve new purposes. In her final report, Maya wrote, the Kethmoran Vash was satisfied not through death, but through transformation. War Maiden Lyralii and I have established the foundation for lasting peace between our peoples, built on mutual respect, shared sacrifice, and the understanding that true strength lies in choosing to protect rather than destroy. Together, they founded the Thessera Institute for Diplomatic Warfare, a training facility that taught both species how to fight for peace rather than against enemies. And in the years that followed, their bond became the template for a new kind of alliance, one forged not in the fire of battle, but in the deeper flame of understanding and mutual respect. The warrior's bond had proven stronger than the warrior's blade, and the future grew brighter for the choice.